So I want to basically just go over what I think is going to be potentially playable in Puffin. Before we are seeing a lot more cards get spoiled. These are just cards that I'm specifically looking at um, for synergies and what I think could potentially be really strong going forward um, as like options for her. There's a lot of cards in this list, and I realize that, but we are going to probably cut it down and just talk over a few handfuls of them that I think people are either underrating or just haven't really been talking about a whole lot. Um, a lot of the equipment I think is going to be pretty up in the air right now. We don't know what High Seas is really bringing in, but the ones that I really specifically want to focus on are Balance of Justice. I think is going to be doing a lot of work, especially in this upcoming meta. A lot of people seem to be drawing cards. Gold just innately makes you want to draw cards, so I think that Balance of Justice is going to be pretty powerful going forward. Um, most of the other equipment doesn't seem like it's anything too crazy. We have a lot of standard generic equipment like Crown of Providence and Final Spring Tunic that are going to be probably just fine. Um, but I think that overall, right now, from what we're looking at, Balance of Justice definitely seems to be extremely powerful. With a lot of the higher cost cards, I'm thinking Goliath Gauntlet also starts to look pretty powerful. Um, we were using this in like Dio previously to help boost up like Heist or to help boost up maximum velocity. So I could see this also being potentially playable in niche cases because gold baited hook is probably going to be a primary arm piece. Um, it really depends, I think, on how aggressive we want to get and how much we value this creation off of the arm piece and whether or not we care about stealing the gold. Um, there's not really a whole lot else that I can go over equipment-wise. I think Polycrank is obviously going to be really good, but that's besides the point. I think everybody's wanting to play the deck because of Polycranka. Um, in terms of, we're just going to go through reds really quick in terms of cards that I think are going to be pretty powerful. I've been seeing a lot of people speculate and say that she's going to be playing a lot of crank cards in her deck. I don't know if that's really the case. Um, we're pretty restricted, at least so far, based off of whether or not she plays predominantly Mechanologist or if she plays predominantly in between Mechanologist and Pirate, and potentially even just full Pirate. So looking at cards that have the Mechanologist restriction on them is going to be pretty difficult. I know a lot of people are really high, for example, on Backup Protocol Red, but Backup can only grab red Mechanologist attack actions. So we lose a little bit of value there. Um, and then same thing for like Boom Grenade. I don't think a lot of people realize that Boom Grenade also specifies that it must be a Mechanologist attack action that hits to trigger it. So I think that a lot of people are overvaluing um, some of the cards that we had seen previously in Bright Lights and saying that they're going to be like way better than I think they're actually going to be in the deck. So I think we need to be a little bit more hesitant with some of these cards and be a little bit more. I think we need to look a little bit more towards some of the other maybe like script cards and kind of see how those potentially play out and whether or not they're also restrictive towards Mechanologist specifically. Um, I'm pretty high on the Galvanized cards. I have a handful of them in here, like Infuse Alloy over here, as well as Cognition Field. I don't know whether or not we are going to like need these cards or not, but they definitely seem powerful. Um, the major cards that I'm looking at for Puffin right now, at least from a generic standpoint, um, are Enlightened Strike. I think any deck that runs some number of 4-cost cards in their deck, and it looks like we have 2 already that are pretty powerful, wants Enlightened Strike in their deck, especially for the turns that we just cannot convert our hand into 4 resources. Enlightened Strike just says, you know what, I'm just going to bottom this card. We'll save it for later, and we'll potentially throw go again if we're like resource short, or we'll throw just like a 7 if that's the only thing that we think we're going to be able to do. I don't know whether or not we're going to be able to cheat action points or not with Puffin, so there's a possibility that E-Strike is just like really powerful because you could draw, but we don't know yet. Um, I'm also pretty high on Gravekeeping as a generic, just for sideboard purposes. Outside of that, I don't really see why we would use it. It's just really good into CYB, and I think it lines up well into Necromancer. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see, but probably looking at this for a sideboard piece. There's a handful of cards on here that I think people are also overvaluing, like Mischievous Meeps and some of the other cards that associate with a specific cost on an item. Right now, stealing gold actually doesn't have a cost. And so if Mischievous Meeps hits you, you can't steal a gold. Or they can't steal a gold. Regardless of which way it's going, Mischievous Meeps can't take a gold from your opponent because the token itself does not have a cost. Now, if we get, let's say, a cog that's an item that goes in the deck that maybe costs 0, between 0 and 2, right? Then I could see this card being played, especially in like a mirror match where you can steal somebody else's cog. That seems like it could be pretty powerful, but we need to kind of wait and see what that looks like. Let me see here. Most of the cards that they've spoiled so far I think are going to be pretty powerful. I'm not too worried about those. I originally was high on Scrap, but I think it's also going to be very restrictive on whether or not we actually get playable items. So, gotta wait and see on that one as well. Soup Up, I think, is going to be pretty much the glue that holds this deck together, at least for right now. We have yet to see a lot of different cards, but Soup Up is doing everything that this deck wants. It's destroying, well, you're destroying your items a lot. The cogs themselves destroy themselves, actually, which is also very convenient for this. So Soup Up, even between like red, yellow, and blue, are potentially all playable, especially because of Galvanize being attached to it. Having access to like a blue 4 block, it's kind of crazy. I don't know whether or not a blue 4 block that only attacks for 2 go again is going to be like the most powerful thing we could be doing, but at least with initial information, I think Soup Up is going to be pretty good. Test of Strength is a card that was just, I just realized that it turns out that this card actually is generic. I thought this card was a Guardian card for a very long time because I'd only seen it played in Victor. If Puffin tends to play a little bit higher power cards, there's a possibility that she could end up playing things like Zealous Belting or like Rouse the Ancients, and then Test of Strength also comes into that same category of we're playing these higher power attacks. Maybe we can play these Clash cards, specifically Test of Strength, so that we can get gold out of it. And obviously we want to make gold. So I think that this card has a lot of potential, but we need to see what the rest of the set really looks like to know whether or not this is going to be playable or not. TikTok Clock. TikTok Clock is another Mechanologist restricted card. So I'm not sure if this card will be playable specifically in Puffin, but this card will probably be a counter to Puffin, if I had to guess, specifically in a Mechanologist mirror. If you are able to destroy items in play, it is crazy powerful. Note that this card just says this plus 2 other items. It doesn't associate a cost with those items, so this can actually target gold, which is very, very good. So if you're able to play this card in, let's say, like Dio, or if we have enough Mechanologist cards in Puffin to be able to play this card, then this card can do a lot of work into Dio, or even into the mirror. There's also a possibility that you use this into other pirates if they're creating, like, let's just say, a massive hoard of gold. Then you can potentially play this and destroy their gold with it, and get a little damage ticked in. So seems like it's got a lot of potential. The only other things, I'm just going to kind of quickly glance through some of these cards here. There's a lot of cards that I am speculating whether or not they're going to be good. Master Cog has seen a pretty significant spike in price, probably associated with people thinking that this card's going to be very, very good in Puffin. I could see it being solid. I just don't have enough information to know whether or not it's going to be as powerful as people think it might be. Um, Keeping around a cog for an extra turn could be powerful, but we don't know. The cards that I think I am the highest on, though, are definitely down here in the blues. Um, Whether or not we get a wrench is going to completely change how we approach building this deck. It's possible that we get even both a gun and a wrench, and we have to choose between the two. But clamp press definitely can help us if we get a wrench specifically to play into more of a intentionally wrench focused build. Wrenches, at least from what we know through Max, tend to have pretty good synergy with cranking items and being able to recharge them. So it's a possibility that we end up on clamp press if we get a wrench or not. The only other cards that I'm looking at here that I think are going to be like potentially auto includes are Null Time Zone. This card's doing a lot of work in Dash.io right now, and I think that this card comes at a very small cost to Puffin, especially if decks get pretty homogenous, I guess you could say, um, to where being able to play Null Time Zone into decks that are playing, potentially like Earth, if they're playing 6 or even 9, like Rootbound Carapace, or if you're playing into different decks that are playing just a ton of one singular card, this card just comes out and just does so much work. I know that we're losing two of the most powerful options in both Enigma and in Zen when it comes to playing this card, but I still think it's going to be very powerful. Ripple Away is probably one of the biggest cards that I think people are underrating right now. We have a lot of action cards, at least from what we've seen so far, that seem to be creating gold, and if there is any amount of um, gold denial in the game, I think this is probably one of the most powerful gold denial cards that you could play. Um, Being able to, like, into Marlin as an example, if Marlin starts to play a lot of the arrow buffs that create like Blood Rot or Frailty or something like that, and then they send this big arrow at you, being able to discard this card and just ruin their turn on top of potentially preventing them from creating gold, just it does so much. So I think this card is pretty undervalued, I would say right now. Um, but if you don't have it, you should get it. It's definitely going to be extremely powerful coming up soon. Um, I believe that's pretty much it. Um, I don't have any other crazy speculations that I think are going to be powerful. There's obviously good cards that already exist within the class, but a lot of these are guesses until we know more of what actually is coming out in the set. But that pretty much wraps things up. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.